There are so many great things we can do to help protect the world we live in. Many of them are really simple and some are really fun. Welcome to a new edition of Eco Africa. I am Chris Elems in Lagos, Nigeria. Great to have you with us. This week, we have a great surprise for you as I am joined by my new colleague, Malama Mukonde from Zambia. Welcome, Malama.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's such a pleasure to be with you on Eco Africa, and I'm bringing with me a bunch of inspiring stories. Let's get into today's show. Why an Asian fishing technique is key to the survival of some Tunisian islands. The dancers getting the climate message to young people in Zimbabwe. And the Ivorian scientist who's saving yams and blazing a trail for women in science. Have you ever hugged a tree? Well, research shows that it helps us relax and improves our mood and lowers heart rate and our blood pressure. And most importantly, it helps us connect with nature. I guess the tree owes me lunch now. But anyway, we met an activist in Uganda who also realized a great way of showing how trees are such an important part of life on Earth.
Patricia Ariokot had spent 15 hours hugging this tree when disaster struck. Hard. A lightning strike and power cut ended her world record attempt. But the Ugandan activist didn't give up. In January 2024, Patricia hugged this tree for more than 16 hours straight and is now officially registered in the Guinness Book of World Records. What looks like a fun stunt has a serious background though, and Patricia wants to draw attention to it.
The problem of climate change is huge. And at least now the world is just waking up to it. It's about time that we pick up the pace and plant these trees because our natural forests are gone. We are using up the trees and not minding to replace them.
A statement that is particularly true for Uganda, which has one of the worst deforestation rates in the world. According to the online tracking portal Global Forest Watch, the country has lost more than 1 million hectares of tree cover between 2001 and 2022. For Patricia, this loss needs to be addressed. She says trees are key to facing our climate challenges.
Trees have very, very enormous advantages. At this very moment, I'm breathing in the freshest oxygen, probably in the world, because I'm getting it direct from a tree, and at the same time it's taking in my carbon dioxide.
Just talking about trees is not enough for Patricia. She wants to help bring them back where they were lost in Uganda. For this, she needs the help of upcoming generations and a good idea to get their attention. In this case, it's wooden pencils filled with tree seeds. With these plantable pencils in her luggage, the activist regularly makes community outreaches, mainly in schools in eastern Uganda. So today, tree education is on the timetable for this class.
It's very important that they understand the journey they're about to take on, which is tree planting. And I want them to start the process from a seed. So this particular pencil, for it has seeds inside. And they're using it to study. But at the end of the day, it's going to translate into a tree. A tree was cut and a tree is going to be planted. That is what I want them to basically understand from this.
So you use your pencil.
The activist hopes she can help students to value trees more.
You said.
And when you talk of planting, don't just put there in the soil, then for you go. You're supposed to water.
In this school, Patricia's tree and planting education was well received.
It has come at the right time when our region and the country at large is in need of mitigating climate change. for we all know how much our communities are destroying that trees, hence causing drastic climate change. So it is really in good time.
It takes decades until a seed has reached the size of these trees. All the more reason, says Patricia, to begin embracing them sooner rather than later.
My satisfaction would be that people see trees as things that we should love, that we should protect, and eventually plant. So you seeing me do this, maybe it could take something in your mind as well, that trees could be precious things that we can live very, very well with.
We now travel to Guinea on the Atlantic coast, where some precious wetlands are under pressure. The region provides habitat for many species, including us humans. We visited an archipelago to see how conservation efforts are helping to save nature and also protect the interests of local communities.
Good luck. Off you go. Run fast.
This young turtle has made it, as have many of its siblings, here on the Tristão Islands. Local eco-guards have kept the eggs safe from poachers and are now shielding the baby turtles from birds as they flipper their way across the beach. Protecting the nesting areas is a community effort.
We have our eco-guards who keep watch morning and evening. They're from the village themselves. Just by their very presence, by educating their families, they're our weapons. Nobody touches anything.
The local eco-guards have been working with an armed conservation corps linked to Guinea's Environment Ministry since 2013. That's when the Tristão Islands were granted the status of Marine Protected Area. The arrangement was the culmination of a 7-year process that combined the islanders' knowledge and experience with input from scientific and governmental bodies. One of the chief organisers explained the approach.
We set up a consultation framework where people were free to express themselves, often in their own Alu or Susu language, to express what they wanted. We then transformed the result of this consultation framework into a management plan.
The Tristão Islands are a mixture of mangroves, mudflats, forests and sandbanks facing the Atlantic Ocean. These largely undisturbed ecosystems are a jewel of biodiversity, but rising sea levels are putting pressure on the local communities. In 2023, seawater flooded 1/5 of the rice fields there. Some 20 families formed a management committee to work together and build dikes to protect their fields. The initiative is part of an intelligent conservation approach that aims to reduce human impact in biodiversity hotspots. Traditionally, rice farmers such as Abdoulaye Kachek would move to more fertile land every few years, and that meant cutting down mangrove forests. Once they became aware of the damage that caused, they decided to stay put.
There was a mangrove restoration project. We realized it made no sense to plant mangroves in one place and just cut them down somewhere else. So we keep the fertile fields we have and don't go clearing elsewhere.
The mangrove trees on Tristão are vital for biodiversity and reducing coastal erosion. The local eco-guards and the Conservation Corps carry out regular patrols. Locals may fell some trees for their own use, but only if the request is approved at a higher level. The local eco-guard explains to the officer why this cutting was agreed on.
The wood was cut to make a road to the last village. We had nothing to make the road, and there's a river in the middle. So we cut the wood to make planks for the bridge. We didn't want to cut it. But a meeting of the people approved the decision because we had no other means.
Other rules are harder to enforce. The nature reserve extends into the ocean, and the joint patrols carry out unannounced checks on returning fishermen in case they've caught any protected species. Under the watchful gaze of the eco-guards, the crew unloads its catch. These rays are critically endangered. A tense discussion follows as the fishermen explain themselves and the Conservation Corps officer lays out the law.
If the fish are not dead, we tell them to release them back into the sea. If they are already dead, we ask them why they caught them and explain why they shouldn't go out and catch them another day on purpose.
This time, the fishermen get away with a warning. Eventually, this community-based conservation effort aims to win over everyone on the Tristão Islands.
Can you imagine catching fish with palm leaves? It's part of an ancient fishing method called kafia that is used off Tunisia's Kekena Islands, and it's especially environmentally friendly. Check out this amazing technique.
The sea is Ala Kebua's second home. Today he is once again heading out to go fishing using an old-age technique found only here on the Kekena Islands off Tunisia's east coast. It is called shafia and involves catching fish with the help of palm fronds. I've always worked at sea. When I was a kid, I went fishing with my dad, and when I finished my studies and returned home, I automatically went back into fishing. Each shafia is arranged as a triangular barrier. The palm fronds can be seen in the shallow waters all around the archipelago. The fishing technique relies on tidal currents to drive the fish into the traps. Unlike fishing trawels, the shafia don't harm the marine environment. Instead, they preserve biodiversity. The problem with the drag nets is that they don't allow anything to escape. With the palm branches, fish find holes to swim through. Kebua's friend Amin Genindes is also on board. He is not a fisherman but an artist and is fascinated by this ancient fishing technique. Traditionally, it involves the use of dead palm branches. For Genindes, they too are part of the Kekena Islands' cultural heritage. In his studio, he creates various products to sell using different parts of the palm. The basis of Kekenian shafia is a cage. That inspired me to create decorative objects for indoors and outdoors. I've tried to retain the original look. He sees himself as an ambassador for shafia. In 2020, UNESCO declared it part of humanity's intangible cultural heritage. It is also linked to age-old traditions and cultural practices. I was using this method as a basis for my project without really knowing how it works. Once I learned more, I fell in love with the sea. But times have changed. Some now use plastic traps as they are cheaper. Others have abandoned the practice altogether as it is time-consuming. And industrial fishing has decimated fish stocks, so the haul in the shafia has also plummeted. But some fishermen are actively campaigning to preserve the tradition, especially because it works in harmony with nature. The palm branches give fish somewhere to hide and live. It is an ecological method that preserves and respects the environment. This fisherman believes shafia will continue to stand the test of time, as the fish caught this way are far superior to the catch from the industrial fishing. The fish are brought to shore alive. That is why they are considered to be better quality than those caught by other means. And high-quality fish is an important source of income for the archipelago and an added draw for tourists who visit the island. But for Ala Kebua, shafia fishing is more than a trade. It is part of Kekena's unique cultural identity that is now at risk of disappearing. In the past, all our ancestors had a shafia. They would build it up over the summer months. But today, having a shafia requires significant financial capital. money that many are unable or unwilling to invest. And so Shafia fishing continues to dwindle, even though it is so sustainable.
A lot of human activity is speeding up climate change, and that causes extreme weather, pollution, and food scarcity. It can really get you down, but it doesn't have to. I mean, thinking about the environment with a little help of dance, art, and music can bring joy and inspiration. We met some young people in Zimbabwe who do precisely that.
This is Kuwadzana, a suburb of Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. It's home to 17-year-old Lincoln Marambauche. For over 2 weeks, the trainee mechanical engineer has been practicing a new dance routine. Then his crew, called Pandas, are preparing for Dance for Climate Action, a community-based song and dance competition organized for the second year running by Greening Kuwadzana, a local environmentalist group.
We should plant trees. We should not throw my paper pese. So I have to make something that is very unique so that when I present, people will understand the word climate.
Zimbabwe currently produces over 300,000 tons of plastic waste every year. Much of it is dumped in public spaces, causing environmental as well as health hazards. Awareness of the causes and effects of the climate crisis and other environmental issues is low among Zimbabwe's youth. According to a recent study, 1 in 10 can't name a single climate adaptation measure, such as recycling or clean energy. This year's competition theme is Dancing for a Plastic-Free Future.
Dance for Climate Action, it's an event that uses dance and, of course, poetry to communicate messages of climate action, environmental justice. We believe that art has a unique way of speaking to people, whereas, academia state facts. Art can deal with emotions, it can deal with, it can bring this sense of kinship, to remind us that we are together. We are the environment.
The competition among the teams is on. The goal is to communicate the problem of plastic pollution in a performance. Lincoln and his group Pandas are last year's defending champions. But this year, they are not as lucky. Although they miss out on the top prize, Lincoln knows their efforts weren't wasted.
But we're going to be friends from now on because they have the same vision with us. So we're going to take each other numbers. Then takutotaura, totanga kuita ma projects, social media, takuto poster and everything. You're hoping the Dance for Climate to move on.
The dance competition is over, but today a group of 10 volunteers with the Greening Kuwadzana project are turning to another form of pop culture and spraying graffiti to encourage people to reuse and recycle more and reach people who otherwise aren't familiar with these issues.
And some people relate better to music, some people relate better to dance, some relate better to, graffiti. So we have artists here. Some of these artists had no clue whatsoever about what climate justice is. But now that we educated them, now they are actually using their, skills, art skills to actually draw messages that will communicate with other people.
As attention from some few community members begins to build, the reactions are mixed to this creative form of environmental advocacy.
If people drive by, for example, the painted messages will discourage them from throwing trash out the window. I hope they continue with this in different communities. Not everyone gets what they're trying to say with the graffiti, and some might even ignore it, but others learn something from it.
Here too, some more Greening Kuwadzana volunteers are taking climate action into their own hands. planting new trees where old ones were cut down. They aim to plant around 5,000 new trees by 2025. With this, the activists are reclaiming a public space and turning it back to a recreational area that can be used and enjoyed by locals.
It's now time to meet a real eco-hero from Ivory Coast. This scientist is boosting food security by finding new ways to protect yams, such an important food in many parts of Africa. Now, that's not all. She's a role model to women and girls everywhere. And I'll tell you this lady is not afraid to get her hands dirty either.
I'm
Kamara Ajata. I'm 27 years old and a PhD student in climate change, biodiversity and sustainable agriculture. I'm a phytopathologist, so I study plant diseases and how to treat them. I've always been interested in agriculture because my father had a farm. So right from childhood, I was with him in the fields. And the more you do something, the more you love it. I thought, why not study yams? Because at home, we were always getting yams, and we noticed that their shelf life had dropped sharply over time. When people see there is rot, they just cut off the parts that's rotten. It's actually because they're trying to save the rest of the tuber so they can sell it or eat it. I identified 5 groups of fungi that cause rot here in Côte d'Ivoire. The steps involved in that took me 3 years. But at the same time I was identifying the fungi, I was already looking for methods to get them under control. I received the 2022 L'Oréal UNESCO Award for Women in Science for Young Talent. On that day of the ceremony, I was so stressed and everyone around me knew it because it was here in Côte d'Ivoire and the audience was Ivorian. The government was there, so I was really stressed. But at the end, I was happy. The biopesticide that I developed is simply made of essential oils, plant extracts, and water. That's all. The women who sell yams were at first surprised to see that something like this existed. Then they were dubious as to whether it would work. They were worried I'd just get their yams wet, but have no results and actually cause more losses. So they were happy to see that it did work and to know they have an alternative that will allow their yams to last even longer in their stock. I was happy to contribute something new.
J'étais heureuse de savoir que j'ai pu apporter quelque chose de nouveau.
I didn't expect to be in the media so much. When I was in high school, my role model was Marie Curie. She was white. Because I had no information, I didn't know that African women also did science. It wasn't until I got to university and my science lecturers were women. I help young female researchers in the laboratory with their manipulations. I try to coach them a little. Their main concern is that they're African. Because they think, if I apply for a scholarship, will they accept me? Because for a woman at master's level, you're expected to be thinking about marriage, family, finding a little job. So what's the point of going for a doctorate? So I tell them, if I've been accepted for a doctorate and a scholarship, you can be too. Because we've had almost the same career path. If I had to give advice to a younger me, it would be, go for it. Reach for the top.
Well, that's it for today. If anything you have seen has inspired you, you let us know at echo@dw.com and search for Echo Africa online for more uplifting stories on sustainability in Africa and beyond. I'm Malama Mukonde in Lusaka saying goodbye for now.
Thanks, Malama. It's been great to have you on the show. And it's goodbye from me to Chris Alems in Nigeria. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.